toward East Delavan Avenue, disappearing past darkened houses. It all happened very quickly. The witness, whose name was Barbara Wozniak, and who didn't realize at the time that she was in fact a witness to something of importance, remained at her door for a moment longer, staring in the direction where the man had run. Nothing happened. There was no one around. All was quiet again. Directly south of her home sat Genesee Street, a main thoroughfare that ran all the way from downtown Buffalo through the east side of the city and out to the suburbs. Even Genesee Street seemed unusually still. Then again, it was 10 p.m., or close to it, on a Monday night, a school night, and it had been raining on and off for hours. Hardly the kind of weather for strolling or sitting on the porch. The peaceful stillness that had now returned was more typical than the odd popping sounds and the figure running off into the dark. Barbara assumed he was some kid who had set off firecrackers in the parking lot, and she didn't give it much thought, particularly with the silence that followed. The rising crime rate around the neighborhood had made residents a bit more alert, but this seemed inconsequential. She went back inside, closing her front door against the drizzle and the dark, and returned to watching Monday Night Football with her brother. By the time the sirens shrieked and the news vans arrived, Barbara Wozniak had all but forgotten about the firecrackers, and she didn't make a connection between the figure in the hoodie and the sudden commotion in the Tops parking lot. Despite what Barbara Wozniak would eventually tell them about the loudness of the gunshots, police were not finding anyone at the scene who had heard them at all. The entrance to the Tops grocery store was less than 50 feet from where the Buick Century sedan was parked. Lieutenant William Mistel and Patrolman Warren Lewis pulled into the parking lot in car L12E at 9:50 p.m., no more than 2 or 3 minutes after hearing the call from dispatch. Lieutenant Mistel and Officer Lewis were assigned to Precinct 12. The shooting had occurred within the boundaries of the neighboring 16th Precinct, but Mistel and Lewis had responded because of both the serious nature of the call and the location in particular. This Tops market regularly employed off-duty police officers as security guards. Mistel's first thought was that this must be an officer-involved shooting. Either a police officer had shot someone or been shot himself. Alvin Pistolka was waiting in the parking lot and waved the blue and white police cruiser over to where the Buick Century was parked, by the fence that divided the lot from residential Floss Avenue. Pistolka was a police officer out of a precinct in South Buffalo, but worked security at this Tops on the east side of the city as a second front job. As Pistolka explained to Lieutenant Mistel, he had not been involved in the shooting, nor had he witnessed it. A young man had run into the store and told him that someone had been shot outside. Despite having been just inside the store entrance, Al Pistolka had not heard any gunshots or anything else out of the ordinary before the young man had rushed in to tell him of the shooting. He had seen this same young man exit the store only a minute before, and had therefore been a little suspicious, wondering at first if this was some sort of ruse to get him outside. Pistolka had followed the young man to the green Buick Century, where he observed the victim, another young male, sitting in the driver's seat. Seeing that the young man in the Buick had indeed been shot, Pistolka had rushed into the store and told the manager to call 911 before returning to the lot to stand watch over the victim, who was unresponsive. Peering inside the Buick, Lieutenant Mistel noted that the young man had been shot at least once in the left side of his face. The blood had thickened already, but the victim, eyes wide open and pupils dilated, was still trying to breathe. Mistel radioed for an ambulance and a tow truck and told dispatch to notify homicide and the evidence unit. Detective John Reagan arrived within minutes of the call and noted right away that the Buick looked brand new, a 1980 or possibly even one of the first 1981 models, fresh off an assembly line in Detroit. Even in the dark, the exterior looked sleek, unblemished, and the interior was pristine.